Welcome to Grow For It. Our goal is to highlight industry leaders in the personal development coaching space and to give you a glimpse into what's working and what challenges they're facing in their businesses so that you can both grow in your business and your personal life. Today, we have a very special guest. Tom Bendt is joining us. Tom Bendt is an athlete, an athletic director turned leadership coach, which flows pretty naturally, I'm sure. Lots of lessons you can learn from the arena of sports. So, Tom, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you and your audience as you get things going on your end. And I'm sort of new to the coaching world as far as a private business. I've been in it about 3 years on my own right now.
Fantastic. Can you walk us through how you got your start in coaching and maybe even a little bit about how maybe athletics led into that?
Yeah, I would go back to, as an athlete in high school and everything, and then got into education as a social studies teacher and a coach for a long period of time. I coached basketball, golf, and baseball during my tenure of doing that, and then became an athletic director at a school in Beaverton, Oregon, which is we had about 1,900 kids there. And then that's where I kind of got the bug about leadership and how could I coach my coaches better than I was coached as a coach. I needed some help as a young person, and hopefully we could do some of that. So that's where I got the bug and really started reading a bunch of different books on leadership, on psychology, on different things, and decided to take the leap of faith about 3 years ago to start my own coaching business. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Fantastic. I don't know if you give yourself enough credit since you say only 3 years, but you've been a coach of coaches for many years beyond that.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. But I always feel like I'm learning myself when I do things with coaches and meet people in small groups and individually. I always feel like I learn as much from them as they probably learn from me, and that's been the fun part of what I'm doing.
That's great. I saw on your website you had said something about how the fact that even coaches need coaches. Why do you think that is, and where do you see the importance in that?
Well, I go back to the first time I heard that comment was about 7 or 8 years ago. We were up in Seattle and got to listen to Pete Carroll, the football coach, and he was on stage. somebody had won a national championship and then won a Super Bowl, and he said that everybody needs to be coached. And that really resonated with me. Here's a guy who's been super successful in his realm, and all of a sudden he's 60 some years old saying, I need people to coach me. So I started to think, yeah, that's very true. We all need somebody in our lives to coach us, challenge us, those types of things. So that's what kind of led me into this whole idea of how do I help coaches not make some of the same mistakes I made back when I was a young athletic coach from that perspective.
Very cool. Well, what would you say, whether it's running your company or whether it's during your time as an athletic director coaching others, has been one of your proudest moments so far?
I think as an athletic director, having been a coach myself for a long period of time, being on the other end and being in conversations with some of those coaches and getting a chance to add in, I guess by asking great questions to start with, but then adding in little things that I had figured out over time, right, through experience. And I wouldn't say wisdom. I would never say I'm a wise person. I'm working on that. But I think I had tidbits to help ask them questions that got them to reflect and think about where they were going. And I don't know if there was one moment, but with a number of the coaches we worked with, seeing them grow, seeing them try new things, seeing them not repeat the same old and be willing to learn, that whole growth mindset thing. I was just very proud of how I was able to connect with them and they were able to trust me enough to actually try some new things. That was very rewarding.
Fantastic. That's great. If you had to pick one thing in your coaching business right now, what would you say is driving most of your business growth?
I think it's connections in Oregon. I was an athletic director, as I said, for a number of years. So we're pretty connected to the OSAA Foundation. And Peter Weber, the executive director there. In fact, he's contracted with myself, my company, to do some work with some different schools every year. So that's been a big part of it. So we've used those contacts to go forward, and then using my contacts as athletic directors around the state. And we're starting to delve into other states. In fact, I was on a call this morning with an AD from Idaho, and I've got another call with another AD in Idaho tomorrow that I got from a contact that was part of our Oregon group. So starting to spread out a little bit, starting to bridge out into other states also. But really, it was my connection as an AD and coach for all those years that probably has been my best lead at this point in time.
That's great. What would you say is one of the biggest lessons that you think is most important for people to learn that you coach, especially those that are coaches of others. Maybe they're coaches of sports teams. Maybe they're athletic directors where they're coaches of other sports coaches.
I would think the thing that I learned the most is probably learn to listen. We always sort of joke with the coaches that we work with, whether it's in small groups or individually. Coaches by nature are tellers. We like to, all the things that we know and pontificate and make sure everybody understands how smart we are. And we fail sometimes to actually listen and ask better questions. And I think that's the thing that I've learned the most. If I'm willing to ask good questions, you've got a lot of the answers inside of you. But if I just try to tell you what I know and come across as this know-it-all, a lot of people turn off that and it's not effective. And doesn't matter if I'm a 60-year-old high school basketball coach coaching 15 or 16-year-olds or it's peer-to-peer. People want to be heard, and asking good questions and actually listening to them and see where they're coming from probably is the greatest lesson I've learned about leadership.
That's great. And diving into that a little bit, how do you ask good questions?
Well, besides reading a number of books on how to ask better questions, that's part of it. Part of it, is the probing questions, right? Get away from the yes and no answers. That's not good for anybody. How's your day going? Okay, well, that doesn't really go anywhere. What can I ask to get them to give me more? Or in your, what you're doing right now is asking follow-up questions to try to get more, to dig deeper if there's something that kind of resonates. And that's what I try to do is open it up with not just a yes and no, and then, tell me more, go deeper, explain that a little better to me. I'm trying to understand all those good things. That actually, as my wife would tell you, I do have a master's degree in counseling and psychology, and she says I never use it, but by the way, I use it all the time. So just letting you know that too.
It's behind the scenes. What she doesn't know doesn't hurt, right?
Exactly.
That's great. What about on the flip side? What's one of the hardest parts about running your business right now?
I think the hard thing is that what I do, I'm going to athletic directors within schools, and budgets are always tight within schools. And not that what I do costs $1 million by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not that good. But, there's a cost to that. There's a cost to whether you're bringing somebody in to work with your coaches or whatever that happens to look like, or if you're doing online training. And as schools and athletic directors choose between, are we going to get 12 new basketballs for our basketball teams, or are we going to bring somebody in to work with our coaches, at a 90-minute workshop or whatever that happens to be, that's a tough one. And what I'm learning is that I've got to get to the sort of through the ADs to the principals or superintendents in schools, depending on their size, because those are the people that are the real decision makers, and they have the power and sometimes the funding, obviously, to make something bigger happen if they find value in that. So I think, going through the ADs to get there, but money is a challenge, and obviously in society in general, but definitely in schools.
That's good. Do you have anything specifically in your own business operations that kind of bog you down? I know when people go into entrepreneurship, it's not always just coaching, which might be what you're used to, but then you introduce sales, marketing, accounting, and other aspects of business that maybe you've had experience with, maybe you haven't.
No, I'm a rookie at all that, as my wife reminds me. She ran her own business for 12 years, so she's been greatly helpful in trying to help me figure out the business part and doing taxes at the end of the year and those types of things that are sort of out of my realm. But there are a lot of behind the scenes things that go on. It's not just going out and presenting to a group of coaches or whatever. The amount of time that I spend with emails, cold emails, follow-up emails, proctoring, hey, is this going to happen? Where are we at? What can I do for you right now? That takes more time than I ever assumed. I never thought that would be, you start valuing your time and go, I spend a lot of time doing that. Most mornings I spend a little while, 90 minutes to 2 hours maybe on that. And I feel like my wife will ask again, what did you do today? And I'm like, I don't know, but I was busy with those types of things, right? I mean, all the things behind the scenes that aren't the sexy things that actually take time to run a business. So I'm still in the infancy stages, but I'm getting better.
That's great. Very good. Where do you see your business, or where would, ideally would you like your business to be within the next 12 to 18 months?
I think trying to grow a little bit, I'm again bridging out into some different states, trying to work with some schools, kind of in that realm. Trying to delve into some social media things, thinking about doing not a podcast because, there are so many of those and they're so good, but is there 2 or 3 minute short videos that I could post every week just on something? Maybe it's with a person I know, maybe it's a testimonial from them on something, maybe it's just, here's what's going on in life and, get people to think about that. Because I think sometimes I personally subscribe to a lot of newsletters, and it takes a lot of energy some days to look at your inbox and go, am I really going to get through that today, or do I want to? So I'm trying to think of what are the quick hitters, and maybe that's the 2 or 3 minute video that can get out there on social media and LinkedIn and places like that. That is a way not just to sell my brand, but just to make people aware there's lots of good things going out there, and a lot of people who want to help you with yourself, whether that's personal development or working with your team or whatever that happens to be.
That's great. That sounds like a really good plan. It makes sense to offer a little bit of value out there so people know what you have to offer.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think most of us actually undervalue what we have to offer, but it's always that imposter syndrome thing. Like, yes, I've got some things to offer, but I don't see myself, top notch by any stretch. So I'm working on getting more clients, more, I guess, publicity out there potentially to go forward and make a bigger impact.
That's great. If you could free up 10 to 20 hours of your week, what would you focus on instead?
Besides my golf game, I'm assuming you're talking about. I don't know. Again, I'm trying to work part-time, so I know that I've got to delve into the AI world and some things to make things more efficient. I haven't quite gotten there yet. I know that's on the horizon. And in fact, I know myself well enough that I've got to start putting those things on my calendar, to your point, like here's X number of hours a week, as I get things freed up in kind of getting the machine part of what I do going, but what do I got to do to try to do something new, not to fall into that comfort zone of here's the way you do it all the time. And that's just not good enough. So I'm still playing with some of those things, even though I know I'm 3 years into this. I'm slow playing it for sure.
That's all right. Now, yesterday was always the best day, but the second best day is today, right?
That is very true. Definitely. Yeah. Good advice.
So on that point, how do you see technology, automation, AI kind of playing a role in your growth over the next few years?
I think I'm just starting to play with the idea. I do a little bit of writing on LinkedIn, and I write some articles every once in a while, every month or so, not too intense, 2 to 3 pages. But just using AI right now as basically my grammar check, my sentence structure to make sure, all those things are in there correctly. And I know people write with that. People do research with AI and say, hey, give me a summary of this and this. And it's almost scary what's out there from that perspective. But I think it can help really save time. I see myself using it also maybe to help write some emails and then still making it in my voice and what I want to say, but it's a good place to start as far as cutting down on some of those time-consuming things probably going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you feel still pretty fresh in the coaching industry, but you're still further along than some others. What advice would you give to someone who's day one going into coaching and just starting out? What lessons have you learned so far that you would like to pass on?
Well, hopefully if you go into it, you really want to do it, you're passionate about it, and you actually, I think, want to help people. I know sometimes people do it and they need the economic resources that come from it, and I'm fortunate I don't need to work full-time and do that, but I think make sure you love it, because there are going to be a lot of hours, like I indicated, on email, doing follow-up and things, and maybe nothing comes of it. So if you're just all about the outcome of I've got to make money or I've got to get this many more clients to make things work, I think that'll take away some of the joy of what you're doing. And hopefully you're doing something that you're good at and love to do. And I think the other thing is, don't be afraid to say it's going to take a little while. Like, it takes a while to find people, for them to spread the word about, hey, I really enjoyed working with Tom or Nathan or whoever that happens to be. And if you're doing good work, people find out. We always talked about it in high school athletics, where parents and kids get into, I got to go to this camp or do whatever to get recruited. Our line has always been, if you're good enough, they will find you. And I think it's the same way in the coaching world. If you're good enough and you get together with some sort of reputation of being successful and adding value to people, I think they'll find you. And again, you have to be proactive there. You can't just sit back and expect them to show up on your doorstep. But I think go at it slow. Don't expect too much too fast, I think might be the bottom line.
That's great. It's like a snowball effect.
Most definitely, yes. Yes. And being from the Midwest, snowballs, depending on how wet the snow is, it gets bigger faster or not so much.
Yeah. You're an expert on that much more than I am. Go ahead.
I was going to say, growing up in South Dakota, we had plenty of snow as a kid. So there you go.
Yep. I lived in Minnesota for a couple of years as a kid, and snow is very fun as a kid. Up there in the north, very fun place to be a kid.
Yeah. It's fun as a kid, not as much fun as adult typically when you have to drive through it, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly. Do you have can you think of one of your favorite stories of seeing development through your coaching, whether that's a student athlete that you've seen during your time or a coach that you've coached as an athletic director or now in your coaching program that you would like to share?
I'll start with one student athlete, and it was a young lady. I was at a small school district doing some things with some athletes, a group of athletes, 2 or 3 times a year. So every couple of months I drove out and dealt with them and did a 90-minute thing and got to know kids. And I guess probably the biggest compliment was as we were doing some things, and I think it was one we were doing on communication and how do you communicate with your coach proactively, not just taking it in their communication style, but how do you figure out to navigate for you what works? And after about the second time I'd been with this group, I get an email. Well, actually, the young lady comes in after everybody else left and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" So we talked for a few minutes, and she had some issues with an upcoming season that she just wanted to bounce off somebody new who there was no need to be scared of, because I'm not in the school. I'm not one of her coaches. I'm not telling anybody. I'm just a person to listen. So we talked a little bit, and I said, well, here's my email. If you want to email and you have other questions, please do. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, she actually sent me an email and said, she goes, "I tried what you said and it was super successful. And I think it's really going to help with my upcoming season." So that felt good. Just that, sometimes, you throw out these nuggets you think, and whether it's adults or kids, do they actually take those nuggets and go forward? And I think one other story with a coach, and there's lots of them, but my former football coach, who's now an athletic director, he and I didn't always see the world the same way. Let's be honest about that. He's a great guy, by the way, but we had different ways of dealing with people, and we've had some conversations, and just seeing how over time, in our relationship now that he's an AD and I'm out of the world, but how he's a different person than he was 10 years ago when we were working together. To his credit, he was willing to do some of the things when we started doing coaching summits at our school with our coaches. He was in the first group we ever did that with, and we can talk more about that later as far as content, what that looks like. But seeing him over time, being willing to read a few books and be part of that and be proactive of seeing the world differently, tons of growth. And that's hard for people. We all, sometimes I think we want to change other people. We don't think we need to. But if you're open enough, and I think he's a success story, because he was always a wonderful person, but he's definitely adapted who he was and has grown to be a really good leader, which is awesome to see.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So can you describe kind of how you run your business? Do you have not typical, but I guess, do you have topics that you like to talk about when you go to these schools and you travel and go to new places that people typically choose from? Do they usually tell you what they're struggling with? Or do you go with just lessons you've learned? What approach do you like to take when you're coming up with your curriculum or your topics?
Right now, sort of the main thing that we do, and I would say we, because I've got a friend, the former AD, who works with me. He doesn't get paid to do it. He's part of it, though, of the program. We call it Beyond the Scoreboard through the OSAA Foundation that I think I mentioned. But the main thing we do when we do coaching, we call them summits, and the idea is to get 8 to 10 coaches in a room with he and I, and we co-facilitate a conversation, and it focuses on character development, leadership, and then getting relationship building. So how do you do that within your program? If I'm the head golf coach or I'm the head, basketball coach, whatever that happens to be, how do you do it with the kids under your guidance and your care, but also with your coaching staff? Are you all on the same page? Are you moving the same direction? Do you have a set of core values? And we try to flush some of that stuff out and get people to think about it, because I think that's where it all starts. As far as and we deal with high school people for the most part, and to get them to be on board, you really have to I think start with, what's inside. How do you want to build relationships? Society, I don't care what society you live in, but winning's important, right? Whether that's making a lot of money in business or if that's, winning on the scoreboard in an athletic situation. But how do you understand that that is not the end all be all? And that's what we try to get to the heart of, what impact are you having on lives? I think one of the most proud moments for me personally is some of the notes I got as a coach back from players. And got a text from a former player from 13 years ago. He and some of his friends were watching a big win we had when they were seniors and just said, "Hey, we were thinking about you, wonder what you up to." But I know coaches, former coaches who have served, have conducted the wedding for kids, not alone getting invited to weddings. Some of those things, I think those are irreplaceable, and the wins will fade away over time, but those relationships won't. And I think that's what we try to do with the main summit that we run with coaches, again, on, relationship building. And then how do you get character development and leadership to be part of your idea as a coach?
That's great. One thing I love about your story, the way it's kind of naturally developed, is that you become a leader and you're growing other leaders. And I think that's the true definition of a leader, is that they multiply. Pretty cool to see that. And I will say that from my own experience, I've had athletic coaches who've made a tremendous impact on my life. So it's pretty cool to see that you're impacting and influencing those coaches to make differences in their students. And it's just a broad web that spans way out, impacts farther than you can probably even imagine. So that's pretty cool, especially in the very impressionable age and time of their life too.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that, our the learnings we've had working with other athletic directors around the state and in some different places is people get very little actual leadership training. We just assume that, well, you're the head coach now, you know how to lead people, or you're the principal of a school, so you automatically know how to lead people. We always use the example, it's like, Nathan, you're the best salesman in our company, so we're going to make you a manager over 15 other salespeople. And you have no training. They're saying, go get them. You were a good salesman, so you must be able to manage those people. And we get such little training I think in all probably businesses or organizations, but education, I know for a fact, you would think in education, right, you would get lots of training on those types of things. It doesn't happen. And that's what we're trying to do with what we do right now with my business, is trying to help people get there.
That's a really good impact. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because a lot of people that are called into those positions, management compared to what they were doing before is almost a completely different world entirely.
Yeah. I think the skill sets are so different, right? And we just make assumptions. And I think people are, and that's where I think people leave those positions. I don't know how it is in all places in the country. I know there's a lot of turnover just with athletic directors, as an example, since that was my last job within schools. In Oregon, we have 20 to 25% of all the athletic directors turnover each year. So when you talk about how do we keep consistency within programs, how do we do that? And part of it, people leave because the job's overwhelming and they just say, I can't do this anymore. I need to spend time with my family, or whatever that looks like. And they haven't had the training to understand how to, whether it's time management or leadership, or how do I develop things with my coaches so they can take the ball and run and I don't have to do everything. So yeah, it's a never ending thing. And it's always interesting. Again, we learn a lot along the way.
Yep, that's great. And I love that your viewpoint is that coaches need coaches, because we're always learning and developing and getting better. And the better a coach gets, the better the people that they coach get. So that's fantastic. What about, what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions that you run into, or misunderstandings when you're coaching people that may be new to athletic coaching, athletic directing, something that you commonly see that maybe needs some correction or guidance?
I think in the athletic world, as far as, coaches walking into a high school and coaching a team, whether it's the freshman team, varsity team, whatever, it really doesn't matter sometimes. I think the misconception is we focus on, we would call the first dimension. So we're talking about X's and O's, right? Like, what play am I going to run in basketball or football, and what different things do we do from that perspective? And I think young coaches, that's the focus. And I shouldn't say just young coaches. Coaching in general, that's the stereotype of what we do. And I think as you get further into the whole profession of coaching, you realize that the mental part of the coaching you do with your athletes, how do you capture their heart? How do you get them to want to be there and show them that they're of great value, whether they score any points on Friday night or not? They're still an important person and part of that. Those are the things young coaches aren't taught. And that's the magic that happens, again, building those relationships if you can get there. So I think that's a misconception. They're there because they love the sport. They think they know the sport. They're going to outcoach somebody on Tuesday night, Friday night, Saturday morning, doesn't matter. And they forget about the kids who are under their care to make those people better human beings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What would you say to that is, I guess, one of the biggest things that they need to learn, or one of the first steps towards improving in that area?
I think as young coaches, talk to people who have been around a little bit. And it's not always people within your sport. When I first showed up in Beaverton and I became an assistant coach after being a head coach for a number of years, our head basketball coach, who was probably all of 27, and here I am, a 40-year-old old guy that's been around for a while at that point in time, and he went and watched football practice. He went and watched tennis practice. And I thought, interesting, I had never thought about that, but coaching's coaching. So don't get stuck in just watching your sport and what you think people do or how they do it. Go watch, how do you coach kids? And I think there's a lot of power in that. If you're in a building and you can go watch in your off season, if I'm a track coach, but I go watch wrestling practice once in a while, I go watch basketball or whatever it happens to be, volleyball. I think you can learn a lot by watching how people deal with kids. And that's the thing I would say is go watch good coaches, but watch them how they deal with kids. And I think you'll learn a ton.
That is excellent advice. Very, very insightful there. I guess to kind of bring things to a close, where would be the best place for our viewers to find you or get in touch with you?
The best place to find me probably is on LinkedIn. Just Tom Bendt. If you search me there, you will find me. My company is called Conversations and Coaching. And again, I do have a website, conversationsandcoaching.com. It's all one word, all lowercase, one word. That's the best place to find out what we're all about. But yeah, if you're on LinkedIn, do that, reach out, message me and say, hey, I saw you on the podcast and just wondering if you can tell me more about what you do or kind of see some of the things that we do and get a feel for what I post out there and kind of what we're doing more specifically with the Beyond the Scoreboard program. I want to make sure I put a plug in for that. That's the OSAA program we use working with schools out here, Beyond the Scoreboard, which kind of says it all. The scoreboard's important and there's stuff beyond that, and that's what we're focusing on. So that's where you can find me.
That's fantastic. Well, Tom, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate having the chance to talk to you, Nathan, and look forward to keeping our relationship together in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers. If you found value in this, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you here on the next episode of Grow For It. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.